Okay, I'll call the meeting back to order. We need a motion to go to camera with no action taken. Betty Ann. Okay, Green. Any discussion? All in favor? Carried. Thank you. We have a delegation from the Ministry of Municipal Affairs. Jill Bellchamber is here with some of her colleagues, and she has a PowerPoint presentation. So, Jill, if you'd like to introduce your colleagues, then we'll move out of the way for a second.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Your Worship, and counselors and staff for inviting us here today. We're really pleased to have the opportunity to speak with you. As the Mayor indicated, my name is Jill Bellchamber. I'm a municipal advisor with the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing and the Municipal Services Office in London. And with me here today is Roger Moyer, my manager on the local government side. And also with us here today is our director, Sandra Davis-Beer. So Roger and I are going to share the presentation, go back and forth a little bit, and share information with you that has been provided to a number of councils. This is just a regular disclaimer to let you know that the slides that you're looking at are not to be used in lieu of referring to the actual legislation. It's just for convenience purposes, so if you were looking for the legal reference, you should go to the legislation directly. But we do, always want to encourage you to contact us if you have questions, because we can share with you information about best practices and chat about different aspects and share new information that's coming down. But always look to the legislation. Roger's going to provide a little bit of information about our role and the role of the office. So I'm going to turn it over to Roger.
Thank you, Jill. Just a couple of slides about who we are and what it is we do in the Municipal Services Office in Western Ontario, in London. We provide the ministry services out of our office in London to 108 municipalities across the West region. And this just outlines upper tiers like the County of Middlesex, single tiers like the City of London, and lower tiers like we are here this evening in Adelaide Metcalfe. Forward. The ministry is responsible for administering about 50 pieces of legislation. The most predominant ones are shown on this slide. Certainly the bulk of our presentation this evening is going to be about the Municipal Act. We also touch on the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act as well. And as you can see, I mean, all of these pieces really relate to the business that you are in as a municipality, as a council. You're in a very, very challenging environment. I mean, your resident expectations are high. People want enhanced services or more services, and no one likes paying higher taxes. And at the same time, your resources, as are ours, are always being constrained. Our role, the role of our team in London, we've got local government advisors I should have mentioned. We've also got professional land use planners, and we've also got the housing advisors for some of the housing programs that we administer as well. What it is we do, we provide advice and guidance. We don't provide legal advice. We're not a team of lawyers in London, but we do provide advice on the legislation, on the government programs. Oftentimes, councils and staff use this as a sounding board. This is the sort of issues or things that we're dealing with, topics we're dealing with, and they call our staff for their expertise in matters related to local government. We highlight best practices across the municipal sector, not only in West Region, but certainly across Ontario. We conduct a lot of education and training. Much like tonight, your council, we attend many meetings of clerks and treasurers and municipal managers and present on a variety of topics related to local government issues. Our office is really the primary portal into not only the municipal affairs, but often into government and other ministries as well. Our focus really, our staff spends a lot of time talking to staff in municipalities, to clerks and treasurers and municipal managers. The focus really is on building and maintaining a strong provincial and municipal relationship. Again, I mentioned our role in education and training. We also collect and analyze a lot of municipal finance information. On an annual basis, you're submitting those financial information returns, your financial statements. Our staff pour through the numbers, a huge database of municipal financial information. Just one quick word about what we don't do. We're not the municipal affairs police. We don't enforce provincial legislation. We don't enforce municipal bylaws. And generally speaking, we don't involve ourselves in local issues. We don't second guess decisions of council. And just a real quick word about what we don't do. I think this is back to Jill in terms of the focus of our presentation.
That's right. So as you can see from the slide, there is a lot of information to cover. The presentation takes close to an hour. We'll try to be within that time frame. And this is the focus that we've chatted with staff about setting up a presentation today. We're going to look at the Municipal Act, talk about municipal powers as well as roles and relationships, including the roles of head of council, council, and municipal administration. We're going to talk about meetings, both open and closed, chat a little bit about accountability and transparency as well as citizen engagement, and then we're going to touch on the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act. Effective local governments tend to be those municipalities where everyone understands their roles and responsibilities. It's really important to remember that council, staff, and the public all have a role to play in achieving effective local government. Everyone really is on the same team. You're part of the municipality. Everyone needs to be aware of and understand your respective roles and responsibilities, so that's why we're going to spend a little bit of time looking at those. So in regards to the Municipal Act and municipal powers, I'm just going to cover that briefly to give some context about municipal government. So the Municipal Act 2001 and other provincial legislation are what give municipalities a variety of powers, and they fall into categories listed here. We've got natural person powers, broad powers, spheres of jurisdiction, as well as specific municipal powers. I'm not going into too much detail on each of those, but if you're looking for some more information about natural person powers and broad powers and spheres of jurisdiction, there is a really useful municipal councillor's guide on the ministry's website that you can access, and it gives information about those powers as well as information on a number of other items like developing policy and financial framework for municipal governments. So the Municipal Act does provide natural person powers to municipal corporations. It's these powers that permit municipalities to conduct their day-to-day business, and those powers include entering into contracts, hiring and firing staff, constructing, installing, operating facilities. Those type of natural person powers provide municipalities with authorities that are similar to individuals and other corporations, so how those are exercised. Natural person powers do not give municipalities the authority to deliver services or operate facilities that they lack the authority from another source. So natural person powers have to be coupled with another piece of legislation or another aspect of the Municipal Act before it can work. It just allows them to engage in those powers. So another way to describe natural person powers is to say that they take the place of multiple specific entries that used to be in the Municipal Act that would otherwise be required to provide authority to hire and fire, etc., enter into contracts. Broad powers. These are what provide a lot of flexibility to municipalities to meet community needs. A number of areas like governance structure, economic, social, environmental well-being of the municipality, for example. All municipalities have the natural person powers and the broad powers, but municipalities in a two-tier system like we have here in Middlesex County, they also have to look through the spheres of jurisdiction, because the spheres of jurisdiction help explain the division of powers between the upper tier and the lower tier. The legislation was written to reflect what was already happening on the ground, so it's just a division of power within each upper tier and lower tier. Single-tier municipalities like the City of London, they don't have spheres of jurisdiction because they're a single tier. In terms of specific municipal powers, those are powers that are given to a municipality under any act. So it can be the municipal act, it can be another piece of legislation. And it's other than those broad permissive powers and the spheres of jurisdiction. And some of those specific powers that are set out in the municipal act include transportation, highways, waste management. There are other pieces of legislation like the Building Code Act, Police Services Act that municipalities need to follow. As well, it's important to remember that the broad powers and the spheres of jurisdiction are limited to any rules that are set out in more specific pieces of legislation or sections of the Municipal Act where they address specific powers. So they have to follow those restrictions that are set out. In terms of how councils exercise their authority, they find their authority through the legislation, as I just mentioned, and then they exercise it by passing bylaws. And councils should only enter into or exercise their powers by resolution when the legislation explicitly says they can do so. So an example of that being when a council is going to move into a closed session, the act says that they do so by passing a resolution. And the reason for this is that there's a difference between a resolution being more of a desire of council, whereas a bylaw is a more permanent rule of local government. This was the declaration of office that you as the council members would have declared before your beginning of your 4-year term. You promise to faithfully, truly faithfully and impartially exercise the office to the best of your knowledge and ability, that you have not received and would not receive any payment or reward or promise thereof for the exercise of this office in a biased, corrupt, or in any other improper manner, and that you would disclose pecuniary interest, whether it's direct or indirect, in accordance with the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act. We'll move into the roles and relationships. Really, this is the key to any successful organization, whether that's government or business or a local service club, is for everyone to understand their respective roles and their responsibilities. So we're going to touch on each of these roles in the next few slides. We'll talk about the mayor as the chief executive officer of the municipality, what is the role of council, and what is the role of staff, statutory and discretionary staff, and then we're going to talk about the relationship between all of those players. It is the role of the head of council or the mayor to act as the CEO or chief executive officer. That really isn't the same as a CEO of a different type of corporation. The Act specifies and defines what is meant by a CEO of a municipality, and really the details around that are more around the representative role, the promotion of public involvement in municipal activity, and so I'll touch on some of those. The Act also says that the head of council or the mayor presides over meetings so that business can be carried out efficiently and effectively. And in keeping with that, the Act also says that the head of council may expel any person for improper conduct at the meeting. The mayor's role is also to provide leadership to council, and one part of providing leadership is to provide information and share recommendations to council on policies and practices in order to ensure transparency and accountability. The mayors also represent the municipality at official functions, carry out a number of duties under the Municipal Act or other pieces of legislation. And with these responsibilities, the head of council really does have a high public profile and a leading role with the council. Part of that role is balancing citizen expectations. However, it is important to remember that council decisions are made by the whole council. The council is the decision-making body of the corporation, and the head of council, just like any other council member, has one vote and does not have the power to make decisions for the municipality by him or herself without the agreement of council. So there's an interesting description which we have read and have heard that the mayor, head of council, is sort of seen as the head of council being the first among equals. So if you take from that, that a member of a group who is officially on the same level as the other members, but who in fact has slightly more responsibility. I think that's a good way to describe the role of the head of council as it is set out in the Municipal Act in Ontario. Some of the other responsibilities of the head are to, sign all the council's approved bylaws and contracts. Really, the mayor looks for consensus. They're an advocate for council on council agendas, is the conveyor of council decisions, and monitors their procedure bylaw. In terms of the role of council and each individual council member, this is broken down by what the Municipal Act says. Represent the public and consider the well-being and interests of the municipality, to develop and evaluate policies and programs of the municipality, to determine which services and what service level that will be provided, to maintain the financial integrity of the municipality and carry out other duties under the Municipal Act and any other act. And on one of these that sometimes becomes an issue, and we get asked this a lot, it's the role of council to represent the public and consider the well-being of the interests of the municipality, not just one particular board or one particular group. So as a team, this is what it is that council should be doing. So to do these things together, conducting meetings together, passing bylaws together, developing policies together, policies such as a notice policy, accountability and transparency policy, hiring of employees policy. But the key word here, I think, as you can see, we're saying this is done together as a team. In terms of staff, there are some required officers of the municipality. So there is a requirement under the legislation for the municipality to have a clerk, treasurer, an external auditor, so that's someone who audits the financial statements. As well, there's a requirement to have a meeting investigator, and they can appoint, or you can appoint your own meeting investigator. If you choose not to do so, there will be a meeting investigator, and that role will be filled by the Ontario Ombudsman. The Municipal Act does speak to what is the role of municipal staff, and it says, the role is to undertake research and provide advice to council on the policies and programs of the municipality. As well, the staff's role is to implement council's decisions and establish administrative practices and procedures in order to carry out those council decisions. Most municipalities will have a more extensive description of what they expect beyond what's included in the Municipal Act, and that's absolutely appropriate. There are some discretionary positions that are also identified in the Municipal Act. Key one I think that we think of is the Chief Administrative Officer, or the CAO. And the CAO is the head of the staff and is the primary contact for council and to direct staff. So it is Section 229 of the Municipal Act that states that a municipality may appoint a Chief Administrative Officer, and if they choose to do so, that CAO is responsible for exercising general control and management of the affairs of the municipality for the purpose of ensuring the efficient and effective operation of the municipality and performing other duties as they're assigned by the municipality. Really, it is very important to respect the chain of command in a municipality, as it is in any organization, for the same reasons that it is in any organization. A council member should not go directly to a municipal worker regarding an issue. They should go through the CAO, because you really can't serve two masters, and it puts that municipal worker in a very challenging situation. It's vital that staff get their direction from one source. You can see and think of why it might be difficult. So if a staff person is getting differing instructions from the CAO than they're getting from a council member, or even the same instruction with different deadlines or competing priorities, that puts them in a difficult position. And it really is critical for the council to trust their CAO to implement their decisions and establish the administrative practices and procedures that are going to allow the staff and the CAO to carry out their council's decisions. It really does use everyone's time more efficiently. So there are some other positions that the municipality may appoint, and the suite of those there, we really call those integrity offices. So we've got the ombudsman, and that is different than the provincial ombudsman, being each municipality can have a municipal ombudsman if they choose. You can have an internal auditor, that's different than an external auditor. An integrity commissioner, which would look at the code of conduct of a municipality, as well as a lobbyist registrar. All of those are optional positions, and we're going to touch on those a little bit later in the presentation. So the Municipal Act does assign some duties and responsibilities that cannot be changed by the council. So examples of those being for a clerk, they have a responsibility through the legislation to take the council minutes. They also have responsibilities with regards to records retention. The council can't change those responsibilities. Another example of that would be the Municipal Elections Act assigns the duty of conducting the elections to the clerk. So council couldn't make any changes there. But in general, it really is the role of staff to support council. Again, I'll touch on this. This is what the role of staff is. It's to undertake research and provide advice to the council on the policies and programs of the municipality, and then to implement council's decisions and establish administrative practices and procedures in order to carry those out. I'm going to change to Roger here.
Okay, thanks, Jill. There's a couple of slides as a summary of the findings of a study that was conducted in the United Kingdom. And I know it's a different form of governance structure there, but I hope that when you read some of these findings, that you can see some transferability to our system of governance here in Ontario. And there's a couple of slides. The study, and the first slide is what the title is what politicians want from senior staff. And the next slide is what staff want to see from the politicians. And I'd probably use as good a time as any to give you some thoughts on language. And I guess my preference, I don't really like the word politician, and I don't like the word bureaucrat. That would be the staff equivalent, I think, of that word. I like elected representative or councillor, and I like clerk and treasurer and administrator, because the titles are always good. It's a bit of an aside from the study. So the first slide, what councillors are looking from staff. Councillors want staff that can focus on the outcome as opposed to process. Always looking for the outcome at the end of the day. Councils want staff, and the findings from the study, that understand the problems, understand the issues, and present a range of options, a range of solutions for that council then to consider. A big one I think there is councils, what they're looking for staff is no surprises. Nobody wants to be caught off center. And certainly acting with integrity and listening well round out that list. And the second slide is what is from the same study in the United Kingdom, what senior staff, when asked, were looking for from their members of council. And staff, again, the findings of the study, want council to look at the big picture. Be able to see the forest, not just the trees, not to get bogged down in the weeds. Staff want their councils to set direction and to show leadership, make decisions. Staff don't want councils to waffle. Certainly the importance of communication, and the big one there is, again, staff, what they don't want from their council is they don't want their councils to micromanage activities in the municipality. Big one there is staff never like councils that make unattainable promises. And that doesn't mean that you can't have lofty goals, you shouldn't have some vision, but don't promise the moon if you know it can't be delivered. Findings from this study. I think there's certainly some transferability here. A couple of slides I'm going to call reminders or advice, perhaps the guidance. I mentioned our advisory and guidance role earlier on. One slide is sort of advice for members of council in this staff-council relationship, and the second slide is advice and reminders for staff in that same relationship. So first off, advice for councils, just to remember that time is valuable, both with your time and staff time as well. So come prepared to meetings is probably the best advice there. Again, Jill mentioned a little bit about that chain of command, using your administrator as your key staff person between the balance of your staff and you as the elected council. Again, I think Jill did mention as well the importance of being representative of your entire community, not just one group, not just one interest, but having the broader public interest top of mind always. And certainly I think good advice, certainly in terms of avoiding public criticism of members of your staff as well. So the second slide is the reverse of that relationship, advice or guidance to staff. Again, remembering that you're not the public figure. No administrator that I know ever wants to see his or her picture on the top fold of the paper. That's the council. The elected representatives are the ones that knock on the doors and got themselves elected. Staff are quite content to work behind the scenes. And I've always said, because when council looks good, staff looks good, and vice versa as well. Again, staff advice is to be impartial. Our best advice is don't play favorites. When you're sharing information, share that information with all members of council at the same time. And again, it's important again not to cross that line between the political, the elected members of council and the staff, the management side. Good members of staff and good administrators don't play politics. I think is a way to say that. So just as a bit of a summary slide, lining up sort of roles and responsibilities in this relationship. On the council side, I'm going to say that that's the steering side of the ship. Council decides and council chooses. And on the administration, the staff side, that's where we have the rowers. So council is steering the ship, and the staff are rowing it. It's staff's role to implement and to carry out the decisions and the choices that the elected council has made. The way I like to summarize it is that the council's focus should be on what to do. What are we going to do? Where are we taking this municipality? And the staff's focus should be on how to do it, how we're going to implement, and how we're going to carry out the decision of the elected council. So just a slide on some potential sources of conflict that can enter that staff-council relationship. Certainly a misunderstanding of roles can certainly lead to conflict when you have members of council or council itself micromanaging in the affairs of the municipality, and when you have staff or administrators, again, they might cross that line and tend to be the more public figures, the political quote-unquote figures as well. So when those lines can get crossed, that can lead certainly to conflict. Certainly personality conflicts, certainly we're not immune to those both in our personal and professional lives. I think what's important here is to always conduct yourself with etiquette and decorum. It certainly is the best practice. Debate is good. A hot debate on an issue is the foundation of democracy. But I guess my suggestion would be is if you're not in agreement, you've got another side, is to dismiss the idea and not the person. So separate the idea from the individual. Because certainly you all bring different experiences. You've all got different professions and experiences to the table, and I guess that's the importance again of acting as a team. It's only as strong as the sum of its parts. Certainly the reality is local government, as I mentioned before, is a complex and complicated business. You're pulled and you're stretched in many different directions. You're constantly balancing the provision of what is really a diverse and complex set of interrelated services. So it's a tough business. You're not making widgets. You just don't turn the crank a little faster and produce a few more widgets quicker. I think of the Lucille Ball on the little chocolate line. You're not doing that. You're delivering public services. You can still, however, certainly analyze the inputs and the outcomes of the business. You can still measure the performance of the business that you're in. Certainly the rules are different, as I mentioned. The what to do, the focus on what and the where we're going as a municipal corporation is the job of the elected council. How we're going to get there is the role of the administration and the staff. So a few problems, pitfalls to watch out for, and again, we're not suggesting that any of this exists. Certainly in Adelaide Metcalfe, it's just it's a presentation on and what to be mindful as a good reminder. But certainly, if any of these things that are listed on the slide are present, can be certainly symptoms of an unhealthy council and staff relationship. And I think these things are present, can lead to negative energies, and certainly detracts. I think the biggest thing is these things can detract from the business of running your municipal corporation. And it certainly won't be meeting taxpayer expectations if these symptoms exist. But what isn't a problem? As I mentioned, debate is good, debate is healthy, foundation of our system. And so different points of view are certainly to be encouraged. But again, showing that respect, conducting oneself with proper etiquette and decorum, top of mind. Certainly what can be a problem, as I mentioned, personal attacks, whether it's counselor to counselor or counselor to staff or staff to council, those sort of personal attacks, as I suggested, attack the idea, I don't agree with the idea, but don't do that to the individual. The second one is a good one, that continuing debate after the decision is made. I mean, there's our system, decisions are made by majority vote, and so once a vote is taken, I might not agree with the vote. In fact, I might have voted against it. But if the majority will of council have made a decision, it is the decision of the council. And I guess our best advice is to let it go and move on. If you stand on the street corner and show at the top of your lungs that you were against it, I think that starts to then erode the trust and the relationship, both with your fellow members of council and with your management team. And that goes equal to staff as well. Staff's job is to put forward their best policy advice. Sometimes council's going to make a different decision. Right? And then that's their prerogative. They're the ones who knocked on the doors and got themselves elected. It's staff's role to do all the research and the analysis, to outline the range of options. Ultimately, it's council's decision on what should be done. And sometimes as staff, the council are not going to accept your best recommendation, but it's staff's job to implement the decision that council has made. So there's a bit of a David Letterman top 10 list, a couple of slides. Here are the first 5, some tips to avoid the sorts of problems that I mentioned a minute ago, and clearly the word respect is spelled out. Should always be striving to promote strong and good relationships with each other and between staff and council. Again, I mentioned in terms of just the human relations, the name calling, the accusations. Again, just to avoid those. Again, airing the dirty laundry, I think, fits in that same bucket. And I think, again, top of mind, the policy decisions are that of council. What we're going to do is council's decision, but managing those decisions and implementing them, and putting in place the processes and systems is the job of staff. And finally, the second list of the 5, again, be mindful that council should be representative of your whole community, making decisions for the broader public good. And I think really at its core, that's your job, is really to make decisions based on the good of the broader public and the future of your community. And I know that you all know that. Make good use of staff. Remember, everyone's time is valuable. Your time is valuable. Staff's time is valuable as well. Respecting that chain of command. Use your administrator. That should be your go-to person to everyone in the organization. And if everyone remembers that municipal councilors are the public figures, and staff are happy to work behind the scenes. Council looks good, staff looks good. Back over to Jill.